Welcome to my channel, Andra Makes, and today I'm very excited to share with you 3 hacks that I have come up with for the Galaxy Tee. And the Galaxy Tee is a free pattern, and it's from Pattern Scissors Cloth. And all you do is go to their website and sign up for their newsletter, I believe, and you get this pattern for free. And it says the Galaxy t-shirt features a chic puff sleeve, the perfect modern update to an everyday essential. And I received some white modal fabric in the June thread crate box, and I've been wanting to make a white t-shirt. So when I saw that fabric, I'm like, I'm going to do it, but I didn't want just a regular plain t-shirt. So I love the Galaxy Tee because of the puff sleeve and the cuff. And here are the line drawings. And everything comes in centimeters. So if you're like me, you're going to have Siri converting a lot of things. And it also comes in copy shop and A4 printing only. It doesn't come in 8.5 by 11 paper print to print, but I sent mine off to the copy shop, and it's only 1 page, and here where I live, tax and all, it's $7. So you can't beat that. You probably spend more than that for paper and printer ink. But anyway, I made the first one just original, the way the pattern's written, and I'll be modeling on my versions here in a few minutes, and I loved it. I made the size 100 centimeters, and it fit me perfectly except for the band around the sleeve. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. But the one I'm wearing is the one that I have hacked, and this has 2 different hacks. I did a flutter sleeve, and I did a ruffle around the bottom. Let me get closer and show you the sleeve. I just love how floaty and pretty it is. It's like a butterfly or a flutter sleeve. And I only did a 1/4 inch hem on mine because I wanted to keep it nice and floaty, and I didn't even use my serger for the edges because I didn't want that serger thread weighing it down. But it still has the original design of the gathers at the sleeve cap. But I just love the floaty sleeves. And then here's the ruffle at the bottom. I'll turn around so you can see the back. And also on my ruffle, I only did a 1/4 inch hem as well, and I didn't serge those edges either because I want to keep everything nice and floaty, and I absolutely love it. And this flutter sleeve is the easiest hack to do because all you do is not add the sleeve band that goes tied around your arm. That's all you do. You just leave that off, and then you hem this. So there's that hack for that. And I'm also going to be showing a hem band hack. And to add the ruffle and the hem band, the first thing you need to do is decide how wide you want those to be, and then you cut that amount off your pattern piece. So the first hack I did was the hem band, and I'll show you that in a few minutes, but I just arbitrarily decided I wanted it to be 4 inches because I wanted a really wide band. I think that looks really cool. So off my front and back bodice pieces, I cut off 4 inches. And here's the piece that I cut off, 4 inches, and I did it to the front and the back, and I also labeled it so in case this ever gets separated, you'll know where it goes. So that's the first thing you want to do, is before you cut out your fabric or anything, is to cut ever how much you want off the bottom of your front and back bodice pieces, and then you'll cut out your fabric using the new front and back bodice piece. And for the ruffle, I used Sam from Frugalissima, her tutorial on how to gather with elastic, and I'm going to link to that. Most everything you need to know of how to do that is in that tutorial. But I will say I did two things differently. Instead of pinning my elastic to whatever I was gathering, I tacked my elastic down to the fabric with my machine, and then instead of using a zigzag like Sam shows in her tutorial, which works fine, I used a long basting stitch. My Juki right here is a straight stitch only machine, so, and it goes up to a 6 for basting, so that's what I used, and it worked out perfectly fine. I've used that method since I discovered it from Sam in other things that I've made, but I do have a machine that does zigzag, but I didn't want to have to switch back and forth and go to my serger and all that, so I just used a long basting stitch, and that worked out fine as well. And the method I used for my ruffle is you want to measure this distance of your front and back bodice pieces, and mine for the size I made was 11 1/4 inches, and I needed to double that because this is cut on the fold, so that came to 22 1/2 inches. So I multiplied that by 1.5, and that the 1.5 number is how loose and or tight, I guess, you want your ruffles. I wanted mine real nice and floaty, so I just multiplied it by 1.5. If you want tighter, more gathered ruffles, you can multiply it by 2, 2.5, whatever. There's all kinds of information on YouTube and everywhere else on how to add a ruffle to anything. So I did my 22 1/2, and I multiplied it by 1.5 to have a really loose ruffle, and that came to 33.75, and I just rounded that up to 34 inches. So I cut a strip that's 6 inches wide, 6 inches from here to here, and 34 inches long. And I cut 2 of those because I need one for the front and one for the back. And then I pre-creased my hem, my 1/4 inch hem, and I'm going to have a little excerpt after I go over all this showing you little tips and tricks of how to do all that. Not for the ruffle piece because Sam already has a tutorial on her channel for how to do that, but that's the measurement I used. And I sewed it onto the bodice with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and using those measurements that I just gave, I cut it 6 inches wide by 34 long, 2 pieces, and then you sew the sides together, of course, with a 3/8 inch seam allowance because that's what the Galaxy Tee is sewn with. And then you do your gathering method. You'll mark your quarter points on your elastic and your ruffle piece, and Sam will show you how to do all that. I do recommend marking the center front and the center back of your bodice as well, because 2 of your quarter points will be your side seams, and then the other 2 will be your front and back centers. So be sure you mark those on your bodice pieces. But follow Sam's tutorial of how to gather this. And since my bodice piece is 22 1/2 inches wide, that's how long I cut my elastic. And then you'll sew it into a tube, and Sam will go over all that with you. And then I do recommend, like I said, pre-creasing the hem. It's a lot easier when you go to, after it's been sewn into a ruffle and sewn onto the bodice, if you already have a pre-crease there for your hem. It's a lot easier to hem it. And my ruffle finished at 5 1/4 inches long. using all those dimensions. Just keep in mind when you're making your ruffle, if you use elastic, and also if you use elastic on your sleeve cap, the seam allowance is only 3/8 of an inch for the Galaxy Tee, so you want your elastic to be 1/4 inch wide. You don't want your elastic being wider than your seam allowance. So this is my first 2 hacks for the Galaxy Tee, and I'm going to try on the other 2 and let you see those as well. And keep in mind that you can mix and match these, and that's what I've done also. So here's a couple more that I've made. I've changed into, this is the original Galaxy Tee with no hacks. It's made directly as the pattern states. And this is the white Moldal fabric that was in the thread crate box. Stand up so you can see. Now, I am 5'11", and look how long this is on me, which I love, don't get me wrong, but keep that in mind. If you're shorter or taller, you may want to adjust the length for your very first one before you make any hacks. But I only did a 3/8 inch hem because I couldn't find the hem allowance anywhere on the pattern. So if you've made this and the hem allowance is supposed to be more than that, let me know. You can see the very pretty gathers, and notice this is a very drapey fabric, so the gathers and the puff right here isn't very dramatic, although like I said, I made the size 100 centimeters. That fits me perfectly, except these cuffs, they're a little big. So the next one I made, which I'm going to show you, I sized down just on the cuff. I sized down 2 sizes and made the cuff 2 sizes smaller, and it fits perfectly. And I'll show you guys that in a minute. I don't know if I showed you the back or not. But here's the original Galaxy Tee, and I'll go change into the next hack. This is the very first hack that I did. It's the hem band, and I also had fun with some color blocking, as you can see. And I'll stand up. Here's the 4-inch hem band that I added, and then as you can see on this one, compared to the one I just had on, the white one, the original one, this fabric is a little bit more substantial than the Modal, so you can see you get a more dramatic poof. So you can have a lot of different looks with this. And here's where I made the cuff 2 sizes smaller, and as you can see, that looks much better, and it makes the poof stand out more. There's the pretty gathering on the shoulder line. Stand back, and here's the back. And both these fabrics are a more substantial knit. So there's the first hack that I did, the 4-inch hem band, and I'll be back with the next one. This is my 4th and final Galaxy Tee for now. This one is hot off the machine, so if you see any loose threads and or dog or cat hair, forgive me. But this one I combined, remember I said in the beginning that you can combine all these hacks for different looks. This one has the flutter or the butterfly sleeve with the hem band. And the first one I wore, the yellow floral one, it had the butterfly flutter sleeve with the ruffle band. So this one has the 4-inch finished hem band with the flutter sleeve. And this one's all the same fabric. And I just love how floaty these sleeves are. They're so fun and feminine. And there's the hem band. Here's the back. Then once again, here's the pretty gathers that I used elastic together. And then again, I did a teeny tiny 1/4 inch hem on this. A very lightweight rolled hem would also be very pretty. You just don't want anything really thread heavy or hem heavy if you want to keep this floaty butterfly flutter look. So we have the Flutter butterfly sleeve hack, the hemband hack, and the ruffle hemband hack. And keep in mind, if you want to do the Flutter / butterfly sleeve, you'll want a lighter weight knit with a lot of drape, so it will hang and float and flutter nicely. You don't want anything too heavy, so keep that in mind if you're going to do that hack. This is actually the easiest hack because all you do is leave off the cuff and hem this, and that's all you have to do, and I just love the look. So I hope you guys enjoyed all my Galaxy Tee hacks, and I hope you'll try at least one. So stay tuned in the next segment and I'll show you little tips and tricks of how to do these hacks. Here's a quick little overview if you want to do the hemband. My pattern piece for my front bodice and my back bodice both measure from here to here 11 1/4 inches. So I need to double that, of course, because this is cut on the fold, so that is 22 1/2 inches. So I cut 2 strips that are 22 1/2 inches long, and they're 9 inches wide because I'm going to be folding it over and doubling it. So I have 2 of those. And I do recommend pre-creasing. That will make things a lot easier for construction time. So just fold each strip wrong sides together and give them a good press down here at the fold, and that's pre-creasing. And then to make the hembands, you will put them right sides together if you're going to sew the short sides. So here are 2 hemband pieces, right sides together, and then you're going to sew a 3/8 inch seam allowance on these short sides. And then once you've done that, you'll have a tube, and then you will use your pre-crease to fold it all wrong sides together. Then you'll have your hemband that you'll sew on to the bottom of your Galaxy Tee once you have your side seams sewn together. And for my hemband to finish at roughly 4 inches, I attached it to the bodice using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then once you have your hemband sewn together on the short sides, you'll fold it back wrong sides together, and it'll be in a tube like this. And I do recommend basting around this raw edge before you attach it to your bodice. That'll make things a lot easier. Okay, now here's some little tips and tricks for the flutter sleeve if you're going to do that. I only used a 1/4 inch hem on mine because I wanted to keep it nice and floating. I didn't want a really thick hem, and I also did not finish the bottom of my sleeve because I didn't want the serger threads either showing through or weighing it down. I wanted to keep it real nice and floaty. So to help with a 1/4 inch seam allowance or any seam allowance you're going to do, I learned this trick from Lindsay from Inside the Hem. Whatever measurement you're going to be folding, you want to draw a line double that amount up from the edge. So here's the example. I wanted a 1/4 inch hem, so all along the bottom of this I drew a line 1/2 inch up from the bottom. Let me show you. So you just go all along the bottom of whatever you're going to hem, and this is 1/2 inch, and then when you fold it up to the line you drew, it will be a 1/4 inch hem. And here's one that's finished. And I recommend doing this because it'll be a lot easier to hem once you have your sleeve sewn in. And there's mine folded up to the line, and give it a really good press with steam if you use steam. I do. And then that'll make it a lot easier when you go to sew your hem. And then another trick for the sleeve, regardless of, even if you're doing the pattern as written, here's another trick for gathering. And in the pattern instructions it says to gather the top of the sleeve so it will equal roughly 4 inches. It's really 3.94, but I just use 4 because that's a lot easier. So I cut a 4-inch piece of elastic, but it needs to be a 1/4 inch wide because our seam allowance is only 3/8, and whatever elastic you're using for any elastic gathering method, you want it to be smaller than your seam allowance. And you gather between the 2 notches on your sleeve cap. So what I do is, like I said, I cut a 4 of elastic, and I'm going to tack it down, anchor it right there at that first notch. So you can see right there, and tacked it down with my sewing machine. And then what you're going to do as you're sewing, you're going to pull on the elastic as you're sewing. And I just use a long basting stitch because I have a straight stitch only machine that I use most of the time. I do have a machine that I can use for a zigzag, but I didn't want to take the time to switch back and forth. So I just use a long basting stitch. My machine goes up to a 6, and then just baste it, pulling on the elastic as you're sewing, and then the other end of the elastic will meet the other notch as you're stretching it across. And you want to make sure that when you're gathering your fabric with this method, keep your elastic, the raw edge of your elastic, lined up with the raw edge of your sleeve, and just pull it as you're stitching it across. If you want to use the zigzag stitches, you can, that's fine, whichever method you prefer. And here's what it looks like once you've sewn the elastic from notch to notch, pulling it as you go. Look at those pretty even gathers. I just love this method and how nice your gathers look. I just, with this shorter piece of elastic, I just let my serger cut it off as I'm serging my sleeve on to my bodice. And that's how I gather the sleeve cap for this pattern. And also, if you want to follow the pattern and make it as is, you can do the same thing to gather the bottom. The pattern says to gather the bottom to be roughly 12 inches, so you would cut a 12-inch piece of 1/4 inch wide elastic and either pin it or tack it down to one end, and then as you're sewing, stretching the elastic all the way across to the other end, and that'll give you very pretty even gathers. And when you're gathering, make sure your elastic is on the wrong side of your fabric. And there's some helpful hints, I hope, on how to do the hemband and the sleeves. So there they are. They're my Galaxy Tee hacks. I hope you like them. If you use any of them, please let me know. If you're on Instagram, tag me on Instagram. I would love to see it. If you're not on Instagram, let me know in the comments that you tried one or more. And like I said, they're really fun to mix and match. And even if you don't do any hacks, I highly recommend this pattern. I just think it's very flattering and feminine, and I just love the way it fits. So let me know in the comments below what you think, and thanks so much for taking time out of your day to watch my video. If you'd like to see future videos, please subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. See you next time. Bye! And today I'm very excited to share with you. And then for the ruffle, and I hope you, here's a quick little overview. My hemband, well, my pattern piece for my front and back, because I have a straight chest.